Hello, everyone. This is your host, Deborah Poneman, and your Life Without Limits, where we share with our listeners knowledge and tools for shifting consciousness and reaching our highest potential. And I'd like to welcome you to our call with today's guest, Mr. Bill Farber, who will be speaking to us on the topic, Rising Above Limitations. Bill is a unique combination as he is a master of energy alignment as well as a successful attorney, businessman, father, and husband. At the beginning of his law school education, he began a meditation practice that created a major shift in his inner and outer life. And then in 1989, he met a Qi Gong Master who told him that his energy was very highly developed, but that it needed to be liberated. So Bill began studying Qi Gong and then became a Reiki master and discovered from the feedback of his clients that his healing energy was beyond anything most of them had ever experienced. So 20 years ago, Bill began working with great success on individual clients, and in 2010, he began facilitating what he called energy wave transmissions, not only on individuals, but groups via face-to-face and even long distance. Now Bill has given thousands of energy alignment sessions to clients from all over the world, from everyday people like you and me to heads of state and A-list celebrities who consistently report that they experience mind-boggling results. Bill's ultimate passion is to benefit as many people as possible through this powerful energy experience. And I would be remiss if I didn't add that every member of the Poneman family, immediate and extended, has also had results beyond description from Bill's energy alignment. And I'm absolutely certain that Bill once very literally saved my life. And maybe I'll even tell that story later on. And today, among other things, Bill will discuss with us what it truly means to live a life without limits. And is this an ideal we should even be striving for or can even reach in practical life? And how does the concept of your life without limits differ from the idea of overcoming limitations? And what is it that creates limits in our lives in the first place? And all of that, besides, Bill will be sharing with us an actual experience of one of his powerful energy alignment. So, Bill, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
No, it's fantastic to be here, and I can't wait to see what I'm going to say today.
I can't wait either. And to start out what you're going to say today, why don't you share with us, I know I told a lot of your story, but can you give us a little bit more insight into the turning point that brought you to where you are at this moment with your abilities and how many people you are benefiting around the world?
Yeah. Basically, you summed it up really nicely when you gave the little intro, but I think when I started doing the energy work back in 1989, it was a real revelation for me, similar to the revelation I would say I had when I started the meditation back in very early 70s, where it's like something opens up and you realize, wait a minute, I had no idea this was here. This was possible or even available to people. I mean, where's this been? It's like 1 minute you're in somewhat ignorant of it, and the next minute it's not like you hear about it, you feel it, you get it, at least to some extent. It's an opening. And so my experience with energy work was very similar to the experience of opening I had with the meditation. Although it was slightly different, but and it was more similar than it was different in that it was like a realization that, wait a minute, this is actually possible not only for some people to do, but for me to do, and really anyone. That was a major, major turning point. And once I took some training and started practicing energy work, it was like a toy for me. I mean, maybe a little bit overboard with trying to work on everybody and everything that came in my path. You know, I have a tendency to be a little bit of a zealot, I have to doubt. But the real turning point for me was really the feedback and the experiences that I would have personally when I was doing this work, internal experiences, and also feedback that I would get from people, and that encouraged me to continue this work, which I've done. Another major turning point, I would have to say, was really precipitated by you and Janet Atwood when you invited me to California. It's got to be close to 3 years ago, I think, now, or whatever.
Yeah, a little over 3 years ago.
To do some energy work at a weekend seminar you were doing. And I thought, well, of course I want to do that. But then it occurred to me I'd like to do something a little bit unique or different for that workshop. And I just sitting down for an hour or so doing some writing, I received very specific instructions to do this, and this. And it seemed like a brand new thing that I'd never heard of before. And it was extraordinarily simple for me to do, and also for people to receive, because they weren't required to do a thing. So I experimented. I invited one of my students over, and she reported very profound experiences with it, and her experiences were exactly in line to what I believe these energy waves were. So that encouraged me to start utilizing this process, which I've been doing since then, since I had the experience with the workshop, with the feedback from the people. And it's evolved over the last couple of years significantly through some teleconferences that I've done and recordings. Because my theory was that if this energy can, quote-unquote, travel over distances, because I do most of my work as remote, working with people now, thanks to these teleconferences, really all over the world. And there seems to be no limitation whatsoever based upon where I'm located and where the recipient is located. The other discovery that I made with it, though, that's really even more significant, is that it works through recordings just as well as it does on a live conference call or a live one-on-one transmission. So this really enabled me to reach a lot more people in a very direct way, because each time you play these recordings, the energy waves start to flow, and it's in the moment. It actually happens every time. So this kind of evolved for me into this one step at a time, and it is continuing to evolve. I have no doubt that there are going to be an evolution of all of these processes is going to continue. So I'm really excited about that.
Yes, and I have it's been an honor to be a witness to the evolution of your work, and you know that I've been a big fan of your work for well over a decade, and it just continues to become more and more powerful, and I know all of our listeners are going to experience it in a little while. So can I dive in and ask you a question? Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
One of the things that you said that you would share with us is what it truly means to live a life without limits. I would love to hear your take on that.
That is such a fascinating. I mean, when I heard the title of the program, it caused me to think very deeply about it. I have some observations about it. The first observation I would say is, if you have the words "your life without limits," it produces one image for me. If you use life without limits without the word "your," it takes on a completely different meaning. What I mean by that is, when you say your life without limits, you're talking about an individual life, right? A person,
yes.
An identity, a me, so-and-so, Deborah, Bill, or whomever. If we think of ourselves as having a life without limits, that's different from saying life itself is without limits. To me, the truth of the matter is that life itself is without limits, but the the me, the person that wants to have that life without limits, is itself a limitation on life. Does that sound a little bit too obscure?
No, actually, just continue, because I know when you start clarifying your points, we all have an aha somewhere along the way. So just continue in that vein, and also maybe you can incorporate the answer to the second part, which is it an ideal that we as humans can even be striving for if just by virtue of the fact that we're human, that is a limit? Because I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah. So what I'd like to say about that, and it's, like I said, it's a very subtle point. But when we say life without limits, life itself is limitless. We could say life is just another word for existence or beingness. That's life, the life force. The life force is infinitely flexible, immortal. It moves, it adapts, it changes. No matter what's going on, it continues, right? And it's not an individual. Life itself is a universal reality, just life. So we say life is without limitations. Now, when you look at it from an individual perspective, life seems to be nothing but limitations, right? We're limited by what our body can do or can't do. We're limited by our mental capacity or how much we've learned or have not learned, right? We're limited by our circumstances. For example, we were born into poverty, or we're born into this, that, or the other situation. So now, it's definitely possible to overcome limitations through effort or through different techniques. But to say living life without limitations is different. And what I propose is this. It's definitely something not only that we can have, but we're destined to have. The thing that stands in our way of having that life without limits is the me. That part of us that believes that we're separate from that life force, that universal life, and we're a separate, we could say a separate entity or a separate being that's trying to, in a struggling sort of way, to overcome its limitations, its perceived limitations. Now, from my perspective, to experience life without limits, one has to identify with life itself much more than one identifies with that limited personality, that limited identity.
Okay, I get that. Okay, so it's possible to live life without limits. I love that you said we are destined to live our life without limits. What stops us is the individual struggling to overcome these limitations that we see, okay?
That we see and we feel, and we experience them, of course, right?
Right. So we see them, we feel them, we experience them, and it's hard for us to not struggle with them, okay? So, I mean, what creates the limits in our lives in the first place? I mean, why do we even have them? Why weren't we born knowing? Because I think especially at this time in creation, all of us, we are absolutely on the intellectual level realizing that we are unlimited, that we are unbounded, that we are capable of everything, yet we still have back pain and shoulder aches and headaches and love lost and we hate our boss and we don't speak to our mother. And why? When we know that we're unlimited beings.
Well, the answer that's coming to me right away is that we say we know it, but we don't. I know that's a little harsh to say that in those words. We know it because we believe it. We've heard it from really great authorities, masters and gurus and people like that, and we've had little tastes of it here and there. But we don't know it with a capital K. I was going to say capital N. That would be embarrassing.
That would have been.
Actually, we know it. We say no to it. Hey, how do you like that one for recovery?
Good
we
job.
say no to that limitlessness because, and here's why, we default and fall back on that me. We feel more comfortable being that cut off, isolated little me. We feel much more comfortable being that than we are being that universal, unlimited life.
Wow.
We fall back
because
on
it's
that.
familiar?
Yes, it's familiar, and it's very, very, very insidious and powerful. It has a very tight hold on us, very tight. So, and many of you out there who've had experiences of this unlimited life or unbounded feelings or experiences or whatever you want to call it, have noticed that after those experiences, that me becomes even more stubborn, doesn't it? It comes back in, for example, and says, wow, that was a great experience I had. Now, what did I do so I can do the same thing next time to get that back? Right? When really that experience was the truth of already that life itself. So why is it this pesky limitation is so powerful? It comes back, and you're sucked right into that almost like a prison of limitation, and that's why it's so painful. It's painful to be limited. It's excruciating, especially when you know you have intellectually at least that you're unlimited, and you think, well, why? If I know I'm unlimited, what's this nonsense, right?
Yeah.
I use the word nonsense just to be polite.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that's the experience of most of us, a huge majority, even those of us who have very, very deep convictions of this unlimited nature of life and this that we're unbounded and limitless. Even those of us that have that, and many of us do have that conviction, you wake up in the morning and there you are again with your same, neck aches or your same sinus problems or the same old heartburn or whatever, and the same old people in your life that are standing in your way of all these things you want to do. And it's very painful to that contrast is excruciating.
Yes.
Right? So we can say, I want to live my life without limits. And you start to maybe overcome one thing or another thing or another thing. But then there's another 3 or 4 things to take its place. And they really aren't things outside of you, are they? They're not outside of us.
No.
A limitation, we're interpreting something as a limitation, using this me as a filter for just the reality of existence, of what's happening in the moment. In other words, it becomes personal. And because it's personal, you immediately become cut off from the reality of what's really there, and therefore unable to respond in we could say, limitless perspective. And instead, we respond with a very limited, protective response. We're protecting this me from hurt or from some negative feeling.
So now, and how you describe it, and I like what you said a few minutes ago, when you have the experience of the unbounded infinite, limitless you, not only when you come back sometimes, when you come back from experience like that, not only do the boundaries tend to become more impenetrable, but they become more unbearable.
Absolutely.
Because you've experienced that unboundedness.
Yes, and the contrast is painful because it's so beautiful and so limitless, and all of a sudden you become so acutely aware of this limited identity of yours, and you can't shake it.
Yeah, it's like putting the universe in a bucket.
Yeah, totally. Now,
yes,
that never really happens because it can't happen, but the experience is, oh, I'm stuck in this prison again.
Why does it feel like it's happening? What is really happening?
These are pretty deep questions that, I can't say that I have the answer to. We could say it's happening because it is. That's our current experience. But on the other hand, deep down inside, we know it's false. There's something in us that knows that this is not true. These limitations are not true. We know it. And because we know it intuitively, and because we know it because we could say we remember it, and because we know it and because we remember it, that's why it's so hard and painful to experience the limitations. Now, I'll give one example, which I quite frequently give, is that of when we're asleep at night. And I'm not talking about dreams here. We're talking about dreamless deep sleep. And, of course, our experience during dreamless deep sleep is there's no experience. We know about it when it's over, when we wake up, right?
Yes.
Now, during that dreamless deep sleep, all we know about it is that our mind wasn't there, our body was not there, or that we had no thoughts that we can be aware of. All our relationships were not there, our job was not there. It was an absence, we could say an utter absence of everything, including all aspects of ourself that we experienced during our waking life. Utterly gone, we could say obliterated, or just non-existent, irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
Then when we wake up, all of a sudden, oh wait, here I am, here's Deborah, or here's Bill, or whatever. And we immediately forget, or we become oblivious to the fact that we existed perfectly, not only without harm, but far better than we exist during the day, during that deep sleep of where we're gone. This limited self is gone. It's non-existent. But we, whatever that is completely fine without it, utterly blissful, without all this limited self, right? This limited me. So when I say we remember it, we experience it every night, and hopefully at least a few minutes,
yeah,
where we know that we're limitless. No one stops and thinks about it and says, wait a minute, who am I? If I don't need my mind, if I don't need my personality, if I don't need my body, my relationships, my world, my universe, or nothing, I was perfectly fine when that disappeared last night. So I cannot possibly be this me, this thing, this character, almost like a cartoon character that I think I am all day long, this limitation. So we know, every human being knows, every sentient being knows that they are limitless. Now, they don't know it in the sense of their mind doesn't know it. And I'll tell you the truth, the mind does not want to know that. It hates that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's why it resists it so much. Anyway, I hope I'm not going on a tangent.
No, that was brilliant. I love the analogy of the sleep. And I have to say, in all honesty, some of the times where I've experienced being limitless very profoundly have been during your energy transmissions during the waves. And when you end, when you say, okay, now, we're coming back, I can't remember the words you use, I'm always like, no, please, I don't want to come back, because that is one of the times where I feel that I am, in fact, a limitless being. And the other thing that I love about your energy transmissions, alignments, the waves especially, what you've been doing the last few years, because before that, my experience of your work was, you helped us so much, like that one time. By the way, for anybody who is interested in how Bill saved my life, he really did. And I'll just interject the story for a second here, just in a way to contrast what you're doing now. Several years ago, I don't know, maybe it was about 5 years ago now, I was in India. I tend to go to India a lot. And I came home. I was great. I don't do the luxury liner trip to India. I do the sleep on the floor of ashrams trip to India. And no one can accuse me of being a princess. Maybe an Indian princess. But anyway, I eat on the floor. I eat with my hands. I eat off of banana leaves. And I don't drink the Ganges water, go for a dip myself in the Ganges. But I am pretty much, down and rugged when it comes to my trips to India. But this particular time I came home, got out of the plane, went home. I was great. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. And my plane landed at 5. It was about 7 by the time I got home. My husband went off to work. I said, oh, you have a good time, go off to work. And I got in the bathtub. And as I was sitting in the bathtub, all of a sudden I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was losing consciousness, like I was slipping away into death. And it was something that I had really never experienced quite like that before, but all of the strength was leaving my body, and I was able to crawl out of the bathtub, but I got halfway out of the bathroom, and I couldn't move anymore. And as I lay there, I felt like I was, in fact, going to die, and I was all alone. Kids were off to school, college, whatever, and my husband was off to work. And I just prayed. I said, okay, this is my time. This is my time. If not, God, save me. And my husband just had the thought that he should come back from work, which is strange because it was now maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. So he hopped in his car, came home, and found me lying on the bathroom floor, unable to talk because I had no energy left. And he always laughs when I say this part of the story where I say, and then he said to me, are you okay? And he said, I didn't say, are you okay? Obviously you weren't okay. But anyway, whatever he said, he asked me what he should do, and the only word that I could speak out, I just had to push the breath out of my lungs to say a word, and the word was Farber, which meant, as in code in our home, it meant, call Bill Farber, which he did. And it was really like a miracle because my husband called Bill, and Bill started to work on me. He was, I think, in his car on his way to work downtown Chicago, and he started working on me.
Yeah, you have something to do in traffic in Chicago. It's terrible, so it's good to have something
right.
productive to do.
You got to do something. And as you were working on me long distance, the strength came back into my body. It was just like, way down into the valley of death, and then you started working on me, and it just pulled me out. I still had to be taken by ambulance to the hospital and was put in quarantine for several days until they figured out what was wrong with me. And as you continued to help me out, that was on a Wednesday, and I know this sounds funny to everybody, but I actually had to go on a cruise from one of my businesses on that Friday, and I went. So thanks to Bill, I was able to go from death to quarantine to a Caribbean cruise in a matter of a week. But anyway, so that's my story.
Well, I'm really glad I was able to help, and I think back, you were a few days after that, you were on a cruise in the Caribbean, and I was still stuck in traffic in Chicago. So where's the justice there?
None. There is none.
That's okay. I don't expect justice from the me. The me never gets justice, right?
But you get my appreciation.
No, I appreciate that, and I don't mean to make fun of it. it was really an honor to be available and to be able to help with that. And like I always say, if there was one life that I'm not claiming that I saved anybody's life, but if there was one at least worth saving, I would say Deborah would be at the top of the list.
Well, thank you so much. And I'd save your life if I could, too, because I'd say the same thing. But
you never know. I have to call you. You never know.
You never know. But the reason why I told that whole story is because even though you still have the ability to help people with their physical maladies in a very, very profound way, and of course we still do utter those words Farber when anybody in the Poneman household has something amiss, either physically or emotionally or otherwise. But the work that you do now with the energy waves is so incredibly profound. And I was telling you that when I got slammed by a flu, I played, and I think it's part of your offer, I played I can't remember what you call them, but it's one of the
manifestation triggers.
Yes, the manifestation triggers. And again, I don't know, I think those manifestation triggers are going to put you out of business because it basically did the same thing for me. I just played it over and over, and it just really turned that whole deal around. So anyway, but the reason why I'm saying this is that it's not just that you help people with physical maladies, but my experience has been that these energy waves actually help people experience limitlessness. And that whole story was just to come to this one sentence, and that is it true? I mean, what is it about those energy waves that my experience is, and I don't know if everybody will experience this, but I feel limitless when I listen to those energy wave tapes, I guess you don't call them MP3s, downloads, whatever they are. Why is that? What creates this limitless, experience from those energy waves?
Well, I'm learning more and more about these energy waves the more I work with them, because I don't make them up or create them, but I seem to have an ability to attune people into them. I believe they're always functioning. They're part of the laws we could say they're laws of nature, but they're more of behind the scenes laws of nature, you could say, and they're of extraordinarily high vibratory frequency to them. So when I do these energy wave transmissions, what really happens, to the best I can see at this point, is that it connects people to those frequencies very, very easily and effortlessly. And then when we connect with those frequencies, they kind of like waves, they'll carry us up into those frequencies spontaneously. And those frequencies are infinitely above and beyond our limited experience of life in our day-to-day waking consciousness. So that the more we listen to the recordings or have live calls or whatever, or one-on-one sessions, the more we become accustomed to how the existence of these waves, the reality of them, and also we become more and more attuned to them spontaneously. So the purpose of the program that we're going to offer here is to gradually expose everyone to the four basic energy waves. And then once we're more established in them as far as experientially speaking, then we do these manifestation trigger processes where we start the waves rolling and we utilize the momentum of the waves to introduce different intentions. And when we're talking about this life without limitations, what happens is it's no longer the individual me that's producing the result. It's the wave. The waves carry that intention outside the realm of our limitation as a me into that universal life itself. So I would say, to answer your question, why you would experience being limitless is that you are limitless already. So it's not such a big surprise that you would experience it. The thing is that the waves I've never really said it this way before, but they're really part of your own self. But they have nothing to do with that self that we consider ourself in a mundane sense, that personality self. But the waves are really a function of our own self. If we look at our own self as just that limitless life, that universal life, which is what, truthfully, what we are. We can't be anything other than that, really. Even from a logical standpoint. I mean, we're part of the universe, right? We're a functional part of it. Even though we believe we're not, the mind says, no, I'm here and the universe is out there. But, come on, you're part of it. You're part of it. Even the physicists will convince you of that if you look into quantum physics. Even superficially, you'll see that's really obvious. So what the waves do is they take you outside effortlessly without you even trying to do anything. They spontaneously lift you. You could say lift you. The waves will lift you up out of that limited self for a short time. And eventually you become comfortable basically living in that space more easily.
Well, I have to agree with that too. You start noticing that the limitlessness is there along with your limited self, and then the limited self becomes less and less limited.
Very beautiful. Absolutely right. Now, the limited self is always going to be with us as long as we live here. We need it, Otherwise, people would say, Deborah, and you wouldn't turn around. You wouldn't know who they're talking to. So the limitation, we could say, is like a film. It's like a bubble with a membrane around that produces the bubble, is the me, right? Without that, if the bubble pops, there's no more bubble. So we need that, we could say, that film around the edges of the bubble to create the form of the bubble so it's an individual bubble. So that's the me, and that'll always be there, and that is a limitation. But without that limitation, there's no bubble, right? So we can't see it as a curse, it's a blessing. That way we can experience this universal life in the context of me, which is great. Without the me, you just are that life, you're not experiencing it though. Mm-hmm. So the experiencer, the me, has to be here to some degree. The only thing is, we want it to be here as a full partner with the universal life, not as a combative, like a combat type of situation. And the more of a partner it becomes, then we can experience limitlessness to the maximum degree possible in this human life.
Love that. The more of a partner it becomes.
It's a collaboration rather than a terrible life and death struggle.
Yes.
So if those of you out there want to kill your ego and kill your individual self, I would just make a general recommendation that instead of that, look at it as a collaboration. See how much easier that feels just to think about that right now.
Wow. Well, that is absolutely beautiful, and this is exactly the moment where I can no longer wait. I want my energy alignment.
Oh, okay. All right. So, we'll do that. Basically, the energy waves, the way that they come through is they come through in a sequence. So the first wave is the clearing energy, which is kind of self-explanatory. It kind of opens up and cleans out the blockages to receiving the flow of the energy. Then the second wave is called the awareness wave, and that is to allow us to allow the awareness, that awareness that we already are, to become more prominent, is one way of putting it. More expansive, less limited. In fact, many people feel that limitations falling away during the awareness wave fairly clearly. Then the third energy wave is the healing energy. I always say I'm not a doctor, and if if you listen to this recording, it doesn't mean you don't go to the doctor or you don't listen to your healthcare professional, please. But it amplifies the body's own healing powers and allows them to be much more at their full throttle, we could say. Now, there's another energy wave which I call the synthesized energy, and that's really when the three waves are weaved together, it produces some fourth higher frequency wave, which is more powerful than the first three combined because it becomes something else. It's like it weaves into something else, we could say. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to actually do all four of those. And so what I'm going to do now is start the clearing energy. If you're sitting comfortably, it's better to have the feet flat on the floor. It's not such a real big deal, but it's probably a little bit better to just become aware, everyone, if you would, of an energy center located in the ground. It could be about 6 inches below the ground, or deeper if it feels deeper to you. If you don't become aware of it, that's fine. You can even imagine it. That's no problem. And just go ahead and plug into that energy center the way you'd plug in a computer. And then switch on the power switch and let that current start flowing. Very good. Now, let's become aware of another center of energy located above the head. Could be a few inches, or it could be much higher if it feels that's where it is for you. That's fine. So go ahead and similarly plug into that center and turn on that power switch. And just as a reminder, during these processes, this is not a doing. You do not need to do anything. You don't need to try and help the energy waves or meditate or visualize anything. I think we do enough during most of our lives. This is a non-doing. We could say this is an allowing. Just allow them to do whatever they do is the best way. So now I'm going to begin the clearing energy wave now, and we'll let that roll for a couple minutes. During this clearing wave, if you have any strong feelings, thoughts, or even bodily, physical sensations, could you just let go of resisting any of that? Just have a welcoming, accepting perspective. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the next wave, which is the awareness wave. And I'm going to start that now. Very good. Now I'm going to bring in the healing energy wave. I'm going to start that now. Now those three energy waves are weaved together into the synthesized wave. And we're going to let that roll for a couple minutes. Now, so we're going to let those waves gently recede now for a minute or two. Although it's perfectly fine if we feel it's continuing. We're going to plug back in now to that center of energy under the ground. Just plug very deeply into the earth. And just allow your legs to grow very long, like roots of a tree. Way down deep into the very core of the earth, and just plant yourself right in there. Wiggle your toes around in there. Just really feel back connected with the body. There's no conflict at all about being really in the body and being completely unlimited. Believe it or not. We could say that limitlessness is experiencing these limitations, but not identifying with the limitations. So when we do open our eyes, just gently become aware that this universal, limitless life is what is looking out through those eyes. And that is what is feeling the sensations in the body, and also being aware of the thoughts and the so-called limitations. Okay, we're done.
Well, that was sublime, as always. Okay. I got to, slap myself a little bit. And, it's so beautiful because exactly what we've discussed for the last however many minutes we've been on the call, 55 minutes, about experiencing the limits within the limitlessness. I think that that's what we are experiencing now, and now we can relate to that more than just as words, because I think that probably most of us are having that direct experience, that we still feel the limitlessness of what you just brought us through, and yet now we're back. So thank you.
And what I would encourage everyone to do is just allow yourself to be aware of that, and also notice how much we resist being in that limited identity. And then could we just let go of that feeling of resistance to it as best we can?
Yeah. Very good.
And if we could let go of looking at it as an obstacle of some kind that we have to beat up on or get rid of.
Well, here's something I don't want to beat up or get rid of. I would love for you to tell us. Now, everybody has heard my story, and I have so many other stories and benefits that I have experienced. I mean, I could sit there for literally hours and share experiences that my friends have had from having taken advantage of your work, including many people who I interview for this series. They all love you, and you are their go-to person. But I would love for you to share with us some of the amazing results that you've seen from people who have applied what you teach. Can you share a few experiences that people have had?
I could do that. There are quite a few. There are quite a few of these, like you could say, physical results, and I always a little bit cautious about using those too much because I don't want to give the impression that I heal people or something like that. But being exposed to these energy waves is very powerful healing effect on people, on many people. And the waves amplify, one's own consciousness and one's own ability to recover and heal much more quickly. So, there have been people with, various, ailments, serious illnesses and things like that have reported very dramatic either recoveries or improvements. So I don't want to do a lot of those kind of things because, as I said, I don't want to give the impression that I'm here to heal diseases and things like that. But it's quite often a byproduct or a side benefit. I don't want to use the word side effect, but a side benefit. But the most profound, the things that I get a huge reward out of hearing are people that tell me that they have been on this seeking spiritual path for many, many years or decades, and they've had glimpses of experiences before, but for some reason when they start listening to these waves, first of all, they have a very clear, fulfilling experience where they know what this is all about type of thing. And they say, well, that's what all this stuff means. That's what they're talking about. And that's, to me, that's the most rewarding experience. And I've gotten that quite frequently. And that's really, really rewarding to me. Even more so than some of the physical things. Because let's face it, we recover from one thing and there's something else. The body is not going to last forever. So there's always something else that needs to be healed or some other issue that comes up. So although I love to help with that, it's very rewarding. The thing that really I feel the most reward from, I should say, is when people really say that they get it. They feel this limitlessness. And it's becoming more and more of a part of their life. Instead of just a fleeting experience here and there, it's becoming more stabilized and more, you could say, concrete in a certain way, more reliable. And they find themselves identifying more with that and less only with that limited part of themselves. So that's so beautifully into our subject matter.
Yeah. Okay, and I also know that you created a special offer for us so that everyone can continue to experience these energy waves whenever they so choose. So first of all, let me tell everybody the URL, which is www.yourlifewithoutlimits.com wave, W-A-V-E. Great keyword. Okay, again, yourlifewithoutlimits.com /wave. So can you tell everyone what they'll find there?
Yes, they're going to be able to immediately download 5 different sessions of energy. Now, the way I have it structured is the first session is the clearing wave, which is the first sequential wave. And I do some explanation and some discussion, but there are some long extended sessions where we are exposed to that clearing energy in a very deep and continuous way. Several dives in and out of that energy. The second recording is the fully devoted to the awareness energy wave. Similarly, there are longer exposures to that wave and a lot more depth of explanation, discussion, etc. There's some Q&A in there also. Then the third recording is the healing energy wave, which is also more lengthy exposure to that wave. So we really get much more familiar with it and much deeper into that. Then the fourth recording is the synthesized wave, where we weave those first 3 waves together. There's quite a long exposure to the synthesized energy wave. And what I ask people to do is to please listen to these recordings in sequence. Doesn't have to be at the same day or anything, but listen to the clearing first, then listen to the awareness, then the healing, then the synthesized wave. At least, hopefully, at least once, but maybe more than once, maybe twice or 3 times through, before we get to the 5th recording, which I call the manifestation trigger. Now this manifestation process utilizes our familiarity with those waves. So that's why I ask that people do listen to those first 4 recordings before they move on to the 5th recording. It's not that the 5th recording is going to hurt you or something if you don't, but we want to maximize the benefit of the manifestation recording. And what I call this is the manifestation trigger. And these are a series of processes whereby we start the energy waves rolling, and then we introduce intentions, different kinds of intentions. And we allow the waves of energy to carry those intentions to a very, very high frequency and a universal function, so that they have a much better chance of manifesting without our having to do much of anything as that individual me struggling to make things happen. Now, I'm real excited about the manifestation triggers because it's about an hour recording, and you listen to it all the way through. But then I've broken out the processes into separate little downloads. So there's like a 15 or 16-minute recording where you just move through all the waves in sequence. And the second recording is maybe 10 minutes, I think, 8 or 9 minutes, where we do some manifestation work, 3 processes of manifestation. And then the final one, which is about 5 or 6 minutes, we do these rapid-fire manifestations. So the more we get exposed to them, the faster they work. So instead of having to spend 10, 15 minutes, you could spend a few seconds. The more you get used to these and the more skillful you get. And when I say skillful, it's just a matter of listening to them frequently. And the nervous system and the brain will just become accustomed to it. Then we find ourselves, if we want to accomplish something, instead of, obviously we'll always use our mind to strategize and to figure things out. There's nothing wrong with that. But we also find ourselves tapping into these energy waves quickly and projecting that intention. And it hugely amplifies our ability to accomplish or manifest what we want. So that's essentially what the program is.
Yes, I just wanted to add that it was that last part, the triggers, because I've listened to your work so much that when I listened to those triggers, that rapid fire process, the manifestation trigger, that was what, like, boom, 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 when I had the flu, it just like lifted me out of it. It's so powerful. And they're very, very short, but it's when you your body becomes accustomed, and your whatever it is, subtle body, gross body, whatever becomes accustomed to these waves, then the triggers work really quickly, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, you know how I feel about this work. I want to share the URL, which is www.yourlifewithoutlimits.com/wave, WAVE. And also, this price of $97, let me tell you, everybody, this is really, I don't know, it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I mean, maybe, here it is, $735 if you add it all up. And that is a real $735 because I know what people pay for being part of this work. And for you to offer it for us for $97, I just think it's phenomenal, and I thank you, and I really, really encourage everybody to take advantage of this. I'll give you the URL again so you can take a look, and it's www.yourlifewithoutlimits.com/wave, WAVE. I know that we've talked the whole time about short and long-term benefits. Short-term benefits, you might be able to experience some, maybe, I know that you don't promise healing, but some healing from some ache or pain or some expanded awareness. But the long-term benefit is really what this teleseminar is all about, really a major shift in one's consciousness. Did I describe that well? Am I safe in saying that?
Perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. And then I would encourage people to make full use of these recordings and listen to them frequently. And in fact, some people report, and I wouldn't recommend this until you've listened to them a few times, but they actually play them in the background and don't even listen to them, and they emanate. The energy waves will emanate from the recordings, and actually the people that are around there will benefit as well. I wouldn't start off with that. I would definitely start off with listening to them. But then once you familiarize yourselves with them, you could actually, play them in the background, and they'll still have a very profound effect.
Wow, that's great. So you could even play for vibrant health and for abundance and wealth and success.
Yes.
Those could just be going on in the background.
Absolutely.
Very nice. Very nice.
And please, I hope people let me know their experiences.
Well, that would be, yes. That would be something that we would all love to hear because we love to hear good news.
Yes.
And we know it's going to be good news. One more time, I want to share the URL, which is www.yourlifewithoutlimits.com/wave, WAVE. Well, Mr. Farber, I am just as usual, so appreciative of you taking the time to be with me and with all of our Life Without Limits listeners. And before we sign off, is there anything else you want to say? Any final words?
Well, the final word is, first of all, expressing my gratitude to you, and it's always very rewarding, and I learn so much from being interviewed by you every time. It's just fantastic. And I would just say that, hey, we are limitless, and we're here to find that out. So if this work helps us along in that path, I'm very, very happy and honored to be able to present it, and I hope as many people as possible benefit from it.
Well, as do I, and I think we've already benefited today, and I really sincerely hope that as many people as possible do take advantage of Bill's special offer, because I'm telling you, $97 for what you are offering in this package is just beyond generous, and it's so life-changing. So I thank you for putting this together. I thank you for being with us today, and I hope that you will come back and be with our Life Without Limits community again. Does that work?
Love that. Absolutely.
Very good. Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone for spending this time with me and with Bill Farber. And I look forward to when we are all together again and to you living your life without limits. This is Deborah Poneman. Have a wonderful remainder of your day. Bye for now. For 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 day.